So many people hear that you should open a 401k or an IRA and save for retirement. And you can have your thoughts on whether you should do that if it traps your money or not. But if you do have one, you get the tax savings on the way in. So typically if you have a traditional 401k or an IRA, when you contribute that money or set aside money from your paycheck, you get a deduction for it on the way in. And there's two things that people get wrong a lot of times. It's more common than you think. It might seem like common sense, but it is very common. So make sure you're not doing this. And that is, one, they just transfer the money into the account. So it's a two-step process, right? You transfer the money into the 401k account or the IRA account, and then you have to take that money and invest it in stocks or bonds or mutual funds. We had a client who just had transferred in, and it happens a lot, they transferred in the money and it just sat there. And they didn't invest it in anything, and it's been years, and they're like, my balance isn't changing. Why am I not, getting the gains I was hoping for? Well, it's because they didn't invest it into any stocks or investments that actually grow your money. And basically, you can think of the IRA or the 401k as like an investment vehicle, right? So you have your traditional bank accounts or checking account, saving account that you would open in your own name. If you have, let's say, an IRA or a 401k, this is basically a separate vehicle or box you can invest it in. So step one is you transfer that from your, if you're an employer or if you're in business, you're setting up a solo 401k, then you would transfer that from your business bank account and you would contribute it into this, new account vehicle. Once it's in this account, just like when you put money into a savings account or something, you then have to spend that money or use that money to invest. And that is what you do in 401k. So you transfer it in, it's in there, it's just in an account, but then you have to actually purchase the investments you want, whether that's stocks, bonds, funds, ETFs, whatever it is. You have to do that. So make sure you're doing both those steps, because you don't want to be like our friend, our client, who had just transferred it in. But luckily, we told her, hey, make sure you invest it in something. Now we're not financial advisors, we're not gonna stock pick for you, but we said, hey, these are things you want to do, make sure you do that. Second, that's the first thing we see, is that people think, oh, I put it in there, I'm all good. But no. Make sure you're doing that, or whoever's doing it, that your employer's doing it, you put it into some stocks or investments. Step number two is a lot of people think, oh, I get this tax-free money when I put it in. But that's not always the case. It depends on the type of your retirement account, right? So if you have a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, or let's say a traditional SEP if you're self-employed, you can get the deduction on the way in. So let's say I contribute, I withhold $10,000 from my paycheck and I contribute that into my 401k. So $10,000, I get that deduction on my taxes. So let's say I make $100,000, I put $10,000 into my 401k. Now I'm only taxed on $90,000. I'm not taxed on that full $100,000 because I get a deduction for contributing that money to the 401k. Now, once it's in the 401k and we're doing the two-step process, we transfer it in and we put it into our investments. We let those investments, hopefully they grow and don't decrease. You do it right. They grow, put it in a mutual fund or ETF, it'll grow eventually. And when you come retirement age, 60, 65, and it's come time to pull that money out, if you have a traditional 401k or traditional IRA, when you pull that money out, well now, let's say that $10,000 over 20, 30, 40 years has grown into, let's say, $100,000. Well, let's say you pull out $100,000 when you are of retirement age, you have to pay tax on that gain, right? So if you put in $10,000, you have $100,000, that's a $90,000 gain you're pulling out, you're taking that as an income, and you're paying tax on that $100,000. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't have to pay penalties or whatnot because I'm of retirement age. Yeah, that's correct. You're not paying penalties, but you still have to pay tax on the income because now it's seen as income back to you at that age. And so a lot of people strategize and say, oh, you should just pay tax on the way now because tax rates are probably going up. And that's probably the case if you look at the historic tax rates over time. If that is the case, you could consider doing a Roth IRA or a Roth solo 401k, which means that you pay the tax on the way in, so when you take it out, you don't pay any tax. So let's, for example, say Peter Thiel is the common example, right? He invested through a Roth IRA into Facebook and other investments because he self-directed the Roth IRA, which means that you can not only just invest in stocks or bonds or mutual funds, the traditional investments, but you can also invest in things like private equity or real estate or crypto or things like that. Basically anything. You can also do loans. If you self-direct the retirement account, either through a self-directed IRA or a solo 401k if you're self-employed, you can do it as a Roth. So that means, let's say that $10,000 example, right? You have $10,000, let's take $7,000 you put into a Roth, and once it's in there, that $7,000, you 20, 30, 40 years later, you take that out, and that $7,000 is now, let's say $100,000. Well, you don't pay any tax on that gain because you pay tax on the way in. So that's the beauty of it. And that is why a lot of people recommend that over the traditional, because you just bite the bullet now, pay your tax, and then when you're at retirement age, you don't have to pay that anymore. But personally, that's what I have: a Roth IRA, Roth solo 401k, and the 401k is cool because your contributions amounts are a lot higher than the traditional IRA or IRAs and even the SEP. But that's for another video. But the things that we really wanted to make sure you knew was, yes, you are paying, you need to, one, invest in stocks once you transfer that money into your retirement account. Two, you need to make sure that you are aware that you will have to pay tax on the way out depending on the type of the account. So if you do not want to pay tax when you pull out that money when you're at retirement age, make sure that you're investing through a Roth, either a Roth solo 401k or a Roth IRA, so that you're not unaware of these things, because we have seen people who come like 45, 50, 55, they're coming to retirement age, and then they're like, oh, this is great, I'm not gonna have to pay any tax when I start pulling this out. But they don't realize that that's not how the 401k or the IRA works, because they have a traditional one, not a Roth. So if you have any questions about this, me and my team are happy to help. Please leave us in the comments what you think, or reach out to us, and we'll be happy to get on a free call to discuss your situation.